Hello, everybody. It is me, Holden Merkel, the king of esports.
And this is your boy Kalen. And I'm Frankie.
And this is your main man, Brandon Rempfer. And we are the Devil's Voice.
So, hello, Doc. I want to know, the report on the season. How do you think it went?
As the season goes, it went pretty well. There's quite a few ups and downs in the season. Coming into it, I really didn't know exactly where we were going to be at. Being probably one of the smallest teams in D2, to handle the power and the running attacks that we were going to handle, have come forward at us. So, all in all, I thought it was a pretty good season. Do you always want to be playing again till that last game of the year? Yes. So, as a whole, I think the season went pretty well.
All right.
Okay, so now we want to ask you, what are the expectations for the next season with the junior class taking the lead as the leaders? Yeah.
My biggest thing as you go into another season is really how people are going to change and adapt to their roles and responsibilities that they have to take on. I really felt this year that some of the seniors took on a good leadership role, that some of the juniors followed along quite well. So I'm kind of interested in seeing how the juniors develop leadership-wise, to take control of the team, to push the team, and just to demand things get done a certain way to make us better. So that's probably the biggest question coming into it. The other question comes into, we got to replace some linemen. That is going to be an interesting problem. There's some freshmen and sophomores coming up, but you hate putting freshmen and sophomores on the line. How's that sound? So we'll have some spots to fill there. That's going to be tough as well.
All right. So, Doc, what pushed you to become a coach for football?
I always like sports. Football is probably my favorite one of all the sports I played, and I played a lot of different ones. The other thing I like about sports is I like to see how the chess pieces move around, in essence. In other words, how people work together, how they get to one point to the next point, and what you can do to make them better along those lines. And I do like working with high school kids. I have fun with that age group and trying to teach them and educate them about the game of football, but also about the game of life. And so it keeps me connected with it since I'm no longer teaching. So, football has always been a great sport, I think, to coach. And the other thing with football is you have to play as a team together. You can't go out there and beat guy 1-on-8. In baseball, if you got a dominant pitcher, you can pretty much win the game by yourself. Even in basketball, you can almost do it by yourself at times. And so football is probably the biggest game that you can kind of go out there and you have to have a team to play. You just can't win without everybody else.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too. It's the first time I played football here, and it's the first sport I've ever played. If you have a really good player, he cannot win by himself. That's what I was thinking. Yeah.
Yeah. I agree. And like I said, football, especially like our team this year, I really thought defensively we played as a team. I was quite amazed. I really thought other teams, we were smaller every single game. And if I was the other team, I would just ran the ball as hard as I could straight forward. And teams tried and they weren't successful. So I'm very happy with our players and our team and our coaches on that aspect of being able to handle that and being able to play as a team. The other thing that comes into that is the kids that aren't starting on varsity or aren't playing the varsity time, they have to give you a good scout, a good fight and practice in order to get the good practice so this way you're ready to play the game.
Okay, so another question is it difficult to start over every year with a different personnel?
It's not necessarily difficult. What is hard is finding the small adaptations to make the players better. You can run the same play with different players and it looks completely different every year. And so you've got to find the way to teach them or coach them how to understand the play in the way they can understand it to make the play work. And so that's probably the hardest part, but I also find it probably the funnest part of the most rewarding is when kids figure out how to do it on their own because of what you said, so they can adapt and adjust to it. And it makes them a better player, and it gives them more thinking outside the box. And so that's one of the better things. Yeah, there's years I'd like to have some players back, and I can't, and that's just part of the game, though. So
That's fair.
So all my 4 years in football, I've wondered this: what is your favorite drill in practice?
Oh, my favorite drill in practice.
We have one.
Yeah,
You
we
have
yeah
one.
we have
I
our
have
own.
an idea what your guys is. Boy, I don't know if I have a favorite drill. There's some skill drills that I really like. As I break down positions and stuff like that. I know when we do wide receiver drills and trying to teach kids how to catch, and I get to throw the ball at them, and when as I get them further along, I can throw the ball harder and harder. It's interesting to see how they keep adapting, adjusting. But I don't know. There's a lot of different drills that I like. Some of the hand fighting drills, I think after kids understand them and get through them, how that works into football is a huge aspect. I like seeing that play. I don't know. I can't pick one really out. Those are just a couple that stick in my head right off the bat. So
Yeah, I think we can all agree that is the Osmond drill.
Yeah, we love the Osmond drill.
yeah, we picked that drill up about 2015 or 16 when we went to a camp in Osmond. Dakota Wesleyan was putting it on, and so we went to that, and we were short. We had all linemen. We had no skill players come to play because they were all playing baseball. And so that was one of the drills we were able to do, and the kids really liked it then. A lot of years, kids like it. There's some years that's not the favorite drill of many people. And so it's real interesting. It goes back and forth. Yeah, the Osmond drill is a good drill. It teaches a lot of different aspects of football.
Okay, so now I want to ask you, what is your favorite moment of this season?
Oh, the favorite moment of the season. The one that sticks out in my head wasn't even successful is the one when we played in Bloomfield and we threw the ball to James and he dropped the ball. We set everything else up. We did everything correctly, and he had the right to catch the ball. And I think he was jumping up and down before he caught the ball, and that's the reason he dropped the ball. That was a real exciting play. That was a pretty awesome play. The St. Fran game was fun because basically we ran the ball down their throat, and normally they do that to us, and so that was a very fun game for me as well. Just the game as a whole. So those two things stick out in my mind quite well.
Yeah, that's a good point. So, one question I have, Doc, is in your years of coaching football, have you ever wanted to just kick someone off the team because they were making you mad or they were disrespecting?
Yes.
Have you ever done it before?
No.
Oh.
No. Sometimes we have to understand as coaches that what we are doing, the win is not necessarily the most important thing. The most important thing is the kids out there playing and learning and understanding how this affects them. And there's years that the kids needed football more than football needed them. In other words, they need to be out for football to help them through life, through school. And so some years those kids have been tough. Some years are the most rewarding when that happens. For the most part, most kids, and most of the time, no. It's just every now and then you find a day here or there that you'd have just been better off them not being at practice. But as a whole, there's really not been a single kid that as you go through the whole year, I'd say I didn't want them out. It's just been there's certain days that you're like, you don't have a good answer for them. Yeah. There's not a good, I don't know what I want to say, a good thing to do that day. And maybe it was on me. Maybe I was having a bad day, and it wasn't on the kid. So, but no, not as a whole year would go along. Is there a kid I would think that I would have kicked off a team?
Okay.
I have one more question. What positions did you play in high school?
I played when I was freshman. I played a running back position. I played quarterback in a game as a sophomore. I played wide receiver most of the time. We ran a slot back or a wing back a lot. I played that. Defensively, I was either a linebacker, a defensive back, or a safety. It varied as needed. I understood the game well enough that they could put me in most spots, and I could go with it and understand what they were looking for and needed. So, yeah, I played pretty much all the skill positions on both sides of the ball. Never was big enough for a lineman though, so never played on the line. I blitzed at times and I blocked at times. I mean, the slot back and wing back was a glorified tight end, but not a lineman.
Shucks, right?
yeah.
Okay, now only if you want to, if you feel like it, could you give us a name for like an MVP of the season?
Oh, I could. To me, if you'd go overall, you'd probably go Zach Foxhoven. But I'll be honest, defensively, between Colin and Zach, it's a toss up. I mean, it's a flip of a coin. As far as the defense goes, on the offense, I almost have to go with Carson. Dylan did some very good things for us this year. I don't know, between Dylan and Carson would probably be there. Carson had some games that were pretty spectacular as far as numbers. The game against St. Fran, Dylan ran the ball a lot, and that was a big, huge win for us. And if we're not able to throw the ball, we might be a 4-4 football team if we have to run the ball every down. So I would just go with Zach because he had an effect on all three portions of the game. Although Dylan punting the ball, once we got Dylan punting the ball, made our punt team a lot better. Yeah, it's a toss-up. I mean, but I would say Zach had probably the most effect on all three portions of the game. But there's a lot of people that were deserving of it. I really think Zach, and by week 6 and 7, his other thing, he stepped up, started being more a leader, especially to those kids that maybe were not following the seniors so much, some of the outsiders. He stepped up. I really thought Colin really stepped up as leadership on talking to some of the skill players or some of those players, and for the most part on the line, we were much older, so we didn't quite need the same leadership and push behind them, and the line was pretty motivated. So there's some of the young guys that needed the push and the leadership. So there's a handful of guys that I would say possibly deserve it.
Okay. Do you have
Very
any?
good answer.
Do you have any good questions? No.
I don't think so.
Okay, so I think we're good with this episode.
I'd say so.
I got a question for Frankie. What do you think of American football?
Oh, I think it's better than soccer.
Oh, good.
Yeah, I had more fun in like 3 months of football than 8 years of soccer. So
Gotcha.
yeah.
Gotcha. Good. Okay.
Yeah, it was great having you here, Frankie, playing with us in football. It was fun.
And thank you, Doc, for coming along our show.
Well, thank you for having me.
So
It was a pleasure.
once again, we are the Devil's Voice. Thanks for listening.